Might be Fort Washington, I thank you, and thanks everyone for taking their time. I think it's a very important meeting. I think it's one where it's a heavy decision for all of us, and we're going to be as transparent as we can, tell you where we negotiated, what we arrived at, and we'll try to give you everything you need. But if you still have a niggling question in the back, save it for the end, we'll answer it, okay? Or we'll have Mr. Bone answer it. Okay. If all of you haven't silenced your phones, if you go ahead and do that, that'll just make the meeting go a little quicker. I'm going to be addressing is how we got here, and why did we get here? And I'm going to give you just a brief history of what has been happening to the golf industry and why it's affected us specifically. In September 2015, there was an announcement by the USGA that said they want to only award the availability to issue handicaps to only certain groups in a state. In California, it was determined that it was going to be two organizations, one in Northern California and one in Southern California. Now, for those of you who don't know, WGANC has been issuing or had been issuing their handicaps to all the women who were members, and we'd been doing that for so long, you probably just assumed that was where you're going to get your handicap forever. Well, that didn't turn out to be the case. We applied to receive all issuing organizations within the state applied to USGA to obtain one of these licenses, and they're called an Allied Golf Association. Am I right on that? Allied? Yeah. And we applied. But their criteria was that the organization must service both men, women, and juniors. Well, we got 2 out of 3, but not that third one. So despite our best efforts, we were denied a license. And we started applying our applications in fall of 2016. And we received final notification in February that we would not be receiving, February of 17, that we would not be receiving a license. Now, we have fought the board and the transition team, and we weren't a transition team then, but we have been thinking of ways, how can we get our handicap some other way? And we have gone through 30 different options, each one shot down, for various reasons. It wasn't necessarily our fault, it was just we didn't qualify at this level, or something prevented us from this level. But believe me, we tried everything. Okay, so once they announced that NCGA was the Northern California recipient of this license, we started negotiations with them. And at first they were group meetings, then we had telephone calls, then we had emails. And we really struggled with having our negotiations with them. Excuse me. Ultimately, we couldn't reach a resolution. And USGA, I think, became concerned. They called for a mediation that was held in South San Francisco. They flew out from back east, and we spent the entire day, and it was PWGA was involved, we were involved, and NCGA was involved. And we spent the entire day, and we finally came up with an agreement that we will have a period of time where we'll see if it can work. And that was called the 2-year collaboration period. During that time, for those of you who do not know, you haven't been paying dues for WGNC. That started in 2018. And that was because we negotiated, at least at that time, that NCGA would rebate us some money that would keep us operating. During that 2-year period, we have negotiated. And we have negotiated, and we've had multiple meetings, hours and hours of redrafts of documents, hours and hours of discussions, meetings, which has arrived at this operational agreement that you've now been told about. Right when we decided we're going to have this 2-year period, we appointed collaboration teams for each organization. On our collaboration team, it was myself, Kathy. Linda wasn't originally involved because she wasn't the president at that time, but there was another member who was on, and then Eva Montessori. That was our team. We figured we got the people who were going to represent us the best. PW had the same thing, and NCGA had the same thing. They had their executive director and their past president, present president, future president, that sort of thing. So we had the people that knew the organizations best that were going to sit there and negotiate for us. What was our purpose? Our purpose, from my perspective, was if the member clubs ultimately decide to vote for unification, we wanted to preserve our history, we wanted to preserve open days, we wanted to preserve tournaments, we wanted to preserve a lot of the benefits that you appreciate now. That was my goal personally, and I know the team was there too, negotiating. So that's what was in the back of our minds as we went through these negotiations. Now, because of the sensitivity of these negotiations, and they would change, we agreed to a confidentiality during the ongoing negotiations. So that's why most of you didn't hear a lot about it until we gave you the first question and answer 1, the second question and answer 2. And this agreement did not finally formulate until early May. So, and there was last minute negotiations still going on at that time. So that's why you haven't heard a lot about this negotiations or the operational meeting. We didn't want things to change. And then someone said, well, you just told me. Well, it changed, you know, so that's why we waited this length of time. Okay, now, I told you about the monthly meetings, the weekly meetings, and that went on since about February of 2017. And as of last month, I think we had another one, or the month before that. So we were getting close, so then we went to go-to meetings even to save time and money on that. I will tell you that every single member of WGANC's collaboration team has contributed concepts, ideas, changes, and so it worked well. Everyone seemed to catch what someone else didn't catch. So it worked well right up until the present. We have also, in case you vote to unify, we've had ongoing communications with a California corporate attorney, because we are a corporation. And I'm a licensed attorney, but I'm not foolish enough to be my own client, and I don't know a lot about corporations. So we've been consulting with a corporate attorney who's very, very good in Sacramento, and she has given us, she worked on the voting ballot, so they're properly worded, because we are a 501c3. She worked on the organizational or operational agreement, wanting to make sure we're covered on everything we need there as well. And I think we've got a good gal who could take us all the way through if we decide to unify. And that's, again, your choice, but we had to go down a two-lane track. Whether you do, whether you don't. So hopefully we've covered the bases. And what is the effect? I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of the proposed agreement. Kathy's going to cover those in detail. And so I'm not going to be doing that, and the other ladies on this and Tom will be telling you about other questions you have in other areas that I won't cover. What happens, we will lose our board of directors, and if that occurs and we unify, we're hopeful that we can still have as many volunteers. We still need the volunteers for our open days and tournaments, which will continue. So we will need volunteers. We're hoping a lot of you will still continue to volunteer. We had 2 recent issues I will address that we resolved them. One of which was and some of your clubs might have gotten an email saying, if the decision is to unify, will you continue to waive the green fees for our tournaments and open days? Now that's a big deal for us because it keeps the costs down, so people can enjoy those types of things at a private country club at a minimum cost. 97 of our 102 clubs said yes. Now right now we do have a contract with each club. This would be without a contract. So 97% of them have said yes in an email from their general manager or their pro. There were only 2 that haven't answered. We're still following up with them. 2 said yes, but they had a few special circumstances, and only 1 said no. So that is a good result. That means we can keep our tournaments and our open days and run them, if not at the same price, maybe a little bit increased depending on how, cost of living and things like that. So we've resolved that issue, which was a big issue for us. The second issue is we have finally figured out a mechanism, especially with the attorney and NCGA's assistance and our collaboration team, a method to distribute, and we have to donate our funds. We can't give them away, and we can't refund them. Our bylaws won't allow it. So we've figured out a method to distribute our funds and still have the benefit of them. And Kathy will explain that to you. It's a win-win from at least that perspective. Now, at the end of the meeting, if you have any questions on anything I've just spoken about, let me know, write them down, let me know, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm gonna let the next few people stand up here and answer, but thanks again from the bottom of my heart for you guys coming down.
Good morning. We're trying to videotape this, so I have to sit here with my hands folded because I talk with my hands and knocked the camera across the room yesterday, which irritated